ever studied ancient history?
The shadows were old, but even the ancients were young. The last great war against the shadows was 10,000 years ago.
If you go to Zahadu, you will die.
Boys used to fall asleep in history class.
Hello, and welcome to Who Are You? It's a Babylon 5 watchcast by a couple of strangers who are continuing to get to know each other over one of their favorite shows from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Laura.
And I'm Ben. I'm back. I wasn't just a one-time bit, apparently.
Yes. So we're doing something different today, listener. We have Ben back with us. So this is due to Xhafer thought he had a COVID infection a month or two ago, and we went to Star Trek Las Vegas, and then he got a real COVID infection, my friends. We are so sorry.
The third time he's had COVID.
Yeah, we're so sorry for Xhafer. His voice was really shot this week. We tried to put it off, but we needed a ringer. So our favorite superfan, Ben, is back.
Woo!
Well, that is an awfully long way to go on behalf of this guy.
Yay.
So tell us, Ben, since you and I are essentially strangers at this moment.
That's pretty true, yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Do you know who I am?
Well, I am a former podcast host. That's Xhafer and I used to have a podcast together. That is something we did for over 100 episodes. He has talked about it, and that is why I was very, very excited when he started to do a new one. And also, I am a new Babylon 5 fan.
A new fan, huh?
Yes, I didn't watch it as I saw one episode as a kid. I was very, very young, and it was on the TV at my grandmother's house. And she had one of those TVs where she did not have cable. She had one of the big antennas that you had to turn a dial and it would point the antenna in different directions. And she could get 3 channels sometimes. And I was at her house for a weekend and was trying to watch TV, and I saw an episode come on, and I was like, why isn't Chekhov wearing his Star Trek uniform?
Oh, so it was a Bester episode.
This is clearly a Star Trek. It's in space. There are aliens walking around. What is going on? And I was very, very confused. But it was on my to-do list as I got older and learned, oh, it's this different show. And since you guys started the show, I started watching as well, along with my wife. And we have, as of a few months ago, watched the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So since you guys started the show, we have binge watched all of Babylon 5. I really love it. There's a lot of really, really fun stuff going on. There's some really interesting tones and different stuff going on. It's also interesting seeing a sci-fi show where it's more or less one person's thing.
Sure, yeah.
Where you don't have the other, shows, things where it's like, hey, I'm the writer for this episode, and I really want to talk about X. It's like, well, that doesn't make a ton of sense. But okay, I guess we'll do your weird talking about whatever subject you want to do, and we'll shoehorn it down to the character that makes the most sense to.
We're looking at you, Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that also happens in, Battlestar Galactica or, other stuff where it's just like, why are we doing a weird organized crime episode? Is this really what everybody should be worrying about? Is this really the sort of thing you would send fighter pilots to deal with? But yeah, it was a delight. And then ever since then, I have been on a couple of sojourns to different places to help Xhafer round out his Babylon 5 merch collection. And I was really, really excited when I found him his Sinclair aircraft plate that he now hangs on his wall.
Yeah, that was a really good get. I love it.
Yeah, so that's it. I am a person who loves podcasting, really glad to be on the mic again, and as of a little over a year ago, a Babylon 5 convert.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I didn't realize you were a new convert. I thought that you were
Yes.
like us and you'd watched as a child. So
No, I'm new to it, and it's it's one of those fun things where, oh man, I've really got into the show from 25 years ago. Who wants to talk to me about my weird theories? And why will nobody talk to me about Jakar? And
I mean, who is this guy? Why is everyone so interested in him?
being friends with Xhafer and then the wonderful Who Are You community, I now get to talk to people about those things and make jokes and laugh at funny memes.
yeah, you are in the right place, my friend. I'm so glad that
Absolutely.
we're a home for that community. Well, so Ben and I were talking before off mic that it's kind of sad we don't get Xhafer for this episode because this is one of the big ones. Today we're talking about In the Shadow of Zahadum. This is season 2, episode 17 per HBO Max order.
That's right. Getting near the end of season 2.
We really are.
Yeah.
And I think that we might be approaching our 50th episode. I'm not totally sure, but
With the interstitials and stuff, it's got to be close.
yeah, we're getting close. So we're getting close to the end of season 2 and we're getting close to 50th episode. So we'll have to do something special, right? I don't know.
Chud 2.
We'll see. Chud 2. You keep working on him, okay?
I'm doing my best.
But we open this episode with Zach and Garibaldi, and they're discussing the current Narn refugee problem while Narns are just like streaming in behind them from the docking bay.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you get a start with Space TSA. Not great when it's wounded refugees. And also you get this really, I think, important note from Alan where he's talking about how we don't have the resources to take care of these people. And that might, that ties into something that happens later in the episode where Earthdome has a bunch of resources for other stuff, but not for war refugees.
Right. Yeah, I've got a note about that too. I did catch myself thinking about that. There was another episode where Xhafer brought up that I guess they were so short on extras that they kind of just had people circling in the back, and I was like, God, I hope they're not doing that in the Narn refugee scene.
I mean, it would work. They'd, just have the wall stop right there and you just keep going around.
And just limp on the other side, you know? Move your bandage real quick. I don't think they did that here, but I couldn't get the image out of my mind. So yeah, they're just feeling swamped under the captain's directives on how to handle these people. We cut to Veer, and he's approaching Mr. Morden.
Best scene in the episode, one of the best scenes in all of Babylon 5. I'm so glad I get to be here for it.
Yeah, he delivers one of the most iconic lines in this entire series in this very scene, like at the very beginning of this episode. So apparently he sent for Ambassador Malari, but Peter Jurasik must have been busy this week because he is not in this episode.
Nope. Yeah, this is one of those things where it's just like, at this point, hasn't Londo proven he can do his job just as well from home? Why does he need to get called in to have a meeting face to face? Like, don't they have this communication stuff down? Like, I don't know, maybe this is unrelatable, something nobody can identify with, but having to go into your halls of power when you've proven you can do your job from here.
Yeah, and I mean there's like Zoom there, right? So
right.
you can just get on the Zoom anytime that you need to talk to Malari. Why does he have to go?
Exactly.
Yeah, so weird. So weird. So Mr. Morden tries to find out what Veer wants. And that's when we get the best line of the entire series.
I'd like to live just long enough to be there when they cut off your head and stick it on a pike as a warning to the next 10 generations that some favors come with too high a price. I want to look up into your lifeless eyes and wave like this.
I want your head on a pike. I want to live just long enough to see you die.
Yeah, which is uncharacteristically aggressive for our man Veer.
Yeah, it is a very vicious side of Veer that I wonder, like, we don't see a ton of Veer without Londo. And I wonder if it's outside of the Centauri structure that he's used to, if he suddenly feels a little bit more free to be himself or say, like, the things he really wants to say.
Yeah.
Because he is definitely a guy who's been, he has been put upon, he has seen the stuff going on. In the last episode, he's just like, he even came out and said, like, hey, you can change the path you're on, you can do different stuff. And Londo was like, nah. He's just like, I hate all of this. And you know what, Morden? I hate you.
Yeah. I read a little bit of research since I didn't have Jafar here to carry me.
Yeah,
And,
I did not read any old old Angel Fire websites to prepare for this. I'm sorry. You're not getting that Jafar content.
No, not expected of a guest. You're a guest at our house. You don't have to do all the research. But I did read a little bit that JMS said that he really wanted Veer to feel like that guy that gets underestimated all the time. And this is his moment where we realize that we've been underestimating him a little bit. It definitely comes across in this scene.
And we get two Veer waves. And it those always make me happy.
Yeah, I can't wait for more. So he does pick up some information from Mr. Morden that's for Londo, presumably, and then Veer takes off.
We never learn what's on that crystal, do we?
No, certainly not in this episode. Yeah. Presumably we'll figure it out later. Something will come up later, I would hope, but who knows?
Or it could just be, hey, this is an ongoing thing. The tendrils are continuing to connect into each other. Londo is becoming more and more ingratiated.
Yeah, we just got to touch in with Londo all the time because we need him. Yeah. In the next scene, Garibaldi delivers some bad news to Sheridan about the refugees. Sheridan agrees that, we can ship the healthiest ones out right away.
Yep.
Let's save MedLab for those that are sickest and dying. He refuses to let the dying die in the docking bay. So
yeah,
very humane of him. Garibaldi points out that Earthdome is going to say that we don't have enough money for this. It's that sort of age-old problem, right? Sheridan doesn't care. And he just happens to be, while he's in his office here, flipping through some files from the Icarus on the TV and sorting through his wife's old stuff. So Garibaldi asks him about it. Like, what are you doing? And so Garibaldi decides to flip through the files on the TV, and lo and behold,
who pops
should
up?
appear? Yeah.
It's Mr. Morden. And Sheridan doesn't know Mr. Morden because he wasn't in the pilot.
Yeah, Sheridan hasn't encountered Mr. Morden yet. And as far as Sheridan knows, this is a man who should be dead. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. This is just another one of a group of pictures of dead people, as far as he knows.
He's incredulous off to theme and then back from theme. He's asking, why didn't the station's computers detect this dead man on board?
Right. And for me, this starts like a whole long line of why did the Shadows and Morden seem to be very together. Like they know their game plan and stuff. And it's just like, why doesn't he have a fake ID? Why does he have the same haircut? Like, why didn't he just report that he was alive? Like he has a whole cover story. Why didn't he just come back and say, oh man, I got knocked out and I'm back now. Everything's okay. Why did they do nothing?
Yeah, this is a bit of a plot hole for me. And I think it's also a harder one to write around in today's era. Like in today's era, you'd have to involve the Shadows in some fake identity stuff, right?
Right.
It would be a different kind of reveal if you were writing this plot today, I think.
Yeah.
Because we know now that computers can do those kind of checks really fast. In the 90s, you could probably talk an audience through this and they quick.
The idea of the paperwork got lost,
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely an easier sell in the 90s.
Absolutely.
So Sheridan has got his hackles way up. He orders Garibaldi to find Mr. Morden immediately. So the whole station security is going to be crawling for this one dead guy. We cut to Talia. We're going to have Talia in this episode. Haven't seen her much in a bit.
Yeah, she's actually involved in 2 storylines in this one. So
yeah, she gets to be in both kind of the A and the B, sort of. Yep. She's got a guest in her quarters, which I thought was kind of weird for somebody to just show up at your quarters. But I guess it's a station and you don't have a lot of space.
You would assume she'd have an office somewhere.
Yeah, because her bed is right there.
The resident telepath feels like they should have at least a vestibule. The front half of my apartment is my office. The back half is where I'm getting dressed, but this guy just walks in and she's putting on her clothes and puts on her gloves and everything. And it's just you should have an office.
They shouldn't have to come meet you by your bed. I don't know. It just felt weird. It felt weird for me. So this guy is from the Ministry of Peace.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
There's nothing nefarious there.
There's nothing weird about the Ministry of Peace, right?
No.
They joke around the office and call it mini packs. You know why they around the office and call it mini packs?
No.
It's a reference to George Orwell's 1984.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a Ministry of Peace in there, and
Yes.
apparently they are aware of it, and so they make office jokes about it. That's another JMS quote that I read about. But I don't know. If I was a government official and I worked in an office that had a similar sound to, George Orwell's 1984, I'm not sure that would be my office joke.
Not so sure I like the sound of that.
No.
Oh, well.
But this guy, McAfee, starts putting on a really compelling argument to me. Like, look, we just need to get our house in order. So, like, if you find peace, and then you convince 3 of your friends to accept peace, and then they can go out and get 3 of their friends to have peace, like, pretty soon, we're rolling in peace here, okay?
Yeah,
There's
we're
nothing
all gonna have peace.
sinister or underhanded going on. This isn't going to financially bankrupt anyone.
This is funny because in my notes, I also compared his pitch to a timeshare.
I absolutely, when that bit came up, I was just like, this feels like everybody's walking away with a timeshare.
Yep. He's got a very calculated harmlessness to him, this guest actor. So this is Alex Hyde White. And I was reading about him. He was born in London, but lived in California. And that's, where he got in the movie business and stuff. So he has that very soft Britishness.
Yes. He had the accent, but it's starting to go away, but it's not completely gone yet. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not British villain for us.
No.
He's harmless British man who might be a villain.
Yes. He's not, it's not the accent of somebody who's inexplicably playing a Roman. Because our Romans always have British accents.
Right. Also, our Nazi allegories often have British accents.
That's true. And if the armband fits.
Yeah. Speaking of armbands, we're getting there. So he tells Talia that her superiors back home have identified her as the candidate for this program that he wants to discuss and launch. And so she's going to go to that timeshare meeting. Well, she agrees. Right. I have some questions about that, but we'll save it for that scene when we get there. So in MedLab, the computer is committing some horrific HIPAA violations by reading all the patient's stats aloud for everyone in the lab to hear. And also, Franklin's been hitting the meth pretty hard.
Yes. But the thing that happens here, one, Franklin is our only person in MedLab right now.
Is he?
There were a bunch of knocked out Narns I saw, but I did not see any other medical personnel.
Oh, man.
But
I didn't notice, so I'd have to scrub.
Who comes in but our Commander Ivanova? And we see a passed out on his arm Franklin.
Yeah.
And what does Ivanova do? She wakes him up to yell at him for not sleeping. And I'm just like, your boy was asleep. He was doing the thing.
You could give him a minute. Come on.
Yeah. Just give him 15.
Yeah. But she's got a big issue with where he's sleeping, I think, and that he needs to go home and do that. She orders him to take some time off, get some sleep, maybe don't hit the meth so hard.
Yeah. And I believe you guys mentioned this is the first time he references using stims.
I think it is the first time he references using them himself.
Yep.
I think maybe there's been a reference in the past to him saying he had used them, but I think this is our first active Babylon 5 in season, definitely using stims.
Yep.
And we've heard of other doctors using them and abusing them. We've heard of doctors losing their careers in earlier episodes, season 1.
But he, talks about how they're totally safe, which makes me think he has a little syringe in his desk that says, don't talk to me until I've had my stims. Just like people have their coffee cups now.
I'm awake. What is it? What?
Yeah. Not weird at all. So he goes to get some sleep.
Yep, 6 hours of sleep and then a meal.
And a breakfast that she will meet him at. She's holding him to that. And then we've got some either random checkpoints on the station, or maybe Mr. Morden's trying to leave. I couldn't tell if this was Space TSA.
I believe it was him trying to leave.
Yeah. So,
and I don't know, maybe if you had a different co-host, they could talk to you about quote unquote random TSA screening checks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Xhafer is kicking himself for not being here on this episode because I don't know if he's told you about this. He somehow always gets randomly screened.
I just have no idea how that's happening.
You can't look at him and tell me you think he is legit.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. It's definite random selection here. And it's Zach. It happens to be Zach doing it.
Yeah.
Morton tries to like Jedi mind trick his way out of this. He's like,
well, then he
"No."
just tries to bum rush past him. And it's just
Yeah.
like, my dude, your whole thing is keeping the lowest of low profiles. You should have you should be saying like, how do you know who I am? Never bring up your manager. Like his whole thing is like fly completely under the radar. And then he tries to just barge past Alan.
Yeah. Bad move.
And then Alan is immediately backed up by like 7 people, PPGs out.
Mhm.
And it's just like, well, there's your budget overruns right there. Did you have this at every single exit point? Are there, 50 other security agents just sitting there hiding around the corner, just like, well, maybe he'll show up at airlock 3.
Yeah, we just covered the station with our security personnel and their guns, all getting overtime, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're that kind of station now. So they take him off to an interrogation room, and Sheridan is pissed.
Yep.
He gives a picture of his wife over to Morden.
Yeah, clearly the actress's headshot,
Yeah, definitely. Morden doesn't appear to recognize her at
Nope.
all. Very strange.
Well, but they also said it's like 130 something people on the ship.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
do you know everybody in your office well enough that if somebody angrily handed you a picture a few years later, would be able to recognize them?
Yeah, I guess you have a solid point there because we have I'm at a small financial institution of about 80 people, and there are some people who I don't think I've seen their face before.
Right.
So,
Or just,
okay.
hey, this person, like, you were on, in the choir with 3 years ago, or,
Mhm.
this person you took a college class with. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was a little bit on Morden's side for some of this stuff.
I don't know. I was thinking of it as like you're all on a small ship together. Surely you've all seen each other's faces, but I don't know for sure. So Morden's got this like immediate amnesia cover story. Like
Right.
he memorized this thing, right?
And it's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the kind of one that it's like, you could have sent this off to like some backwater base and been like, hey, I'm actually alive, got found by this transport here, not actually dead. Can you reactivate my ID card?
Yeah.
And then no one would have thought to look for you.
Yeah. So he says that he was possibly outside the ship because he was found in an EVA suit, picked up by this passing transport, but didn't remember anything. And like he gives some crap about it. Took him months to remember his own name and whatever.
Something went wrong with the Icarus's waxed-based faster than light.
So, Sheridan's like, well, why didn't you tell her Central you were alive? And he's, says he tried to tell her Central and they must have lost it. And I do like this cool trick that he does during this argument where he like pushes the table into Morden to keep him from getting up.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay. But Sheridan, we see a very dark side of Sheridan in this whole episode.
We do. But the one thing that really gets to me is Morden drops the, you haven't accused me of a crime, you can't hold me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, using a dead guy's ID is a crime, even if you are the dead guy. Like,
That's a good point.
This isn't a, we have no law to fit your crime. This is, we've got a bunch of laws. Like, these are like, this is all identity theft stuff. Like, if this guy's dead and you're using his stuff, you got to prove you're him.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be at least 7 laws that they could, like, they're not huge laws. It's not like murder. But you could be holding him on conspiracy to commit identity theft or something.
Yeah. Okay. So that sort of like destroys the whole problem for most of this episode, doesn't it? Whoops. Yeah, you can't quite write this episode in general, I think, the same way anymore.
I mean, it's very compelling. I was just sitting there and I was just like, no, there's gotta, like, at this point in time, there's got to be laws for, like, you show up at a space station using a dead guy's ID.
But Sheridan's going the route of he's going to use Morden's dead status as a reason that he can hold him without charges indefinitely. He's not even bothering, putting together his legal premise. And, Morden makes a couple of vague threats, but we move off to a scene with Dr. Franklin and Ivanova instead.
Yes, they're at breakfast now, presumably 6 hours later.
Yeah. Franklin's still feeling pretty maudlin, which is a thing that I think doctors have a right to do in this situation.
Yep.
He's been haunted by his dead patients. They're both lamenting the Narn and Centauri war situation. And then they get in a good old-fashioned religious discussion.
Yeah. This gets a little concerning for me because if I find out my doctor thinks he sees the eyes of God every time he looks into the eyes of a dying person, I'm going to say, hey, maybe get me a new doctor. I don't want Franklin searching for a religious experience in my passing.
Yeah, I would really like you to be focused right now.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't seem like, hey, I maybe let a few go so I could see God a little bit more, but, maybe I'm not taking my chances.
Yeah, he tells us about this foundationalism idea, which I can summarize it, and I'm not sure I'm doing it correctly, but it's basically you'll never truly define or see God because there's an infinite number of points in between yourself and God.
Yes.
And the closest Franklin gets is seeing the reflection of God when someone is dying. And he's seen it a lot lately. And he's getting unnerved. He's getting upset by that.
And this actually, a thing he brings up in this scene, I really loved. Because it kind of segues into the bit from season 1 where they line up all of the different religious practitioners.
Yes.
And so we know a lot of our current religious practices survive into the hypothetical Babylon 5 future. We know Judaism still exists.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that there are new religious ideologies and fundamentals out there that were formed because, hey, there's aliens everywhere now.
Yeah, now we have to grapple with that.
Well, and then we have to also grapple with what do they believe versus what I now have access to? Like, does everybody know that weird kid in college who's like, nah, I follow Centauri religion. I've got idols all over my place and I'm getting smashed.
The Centauri gods do seem like college gods.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I like the idea that, that whatever it is in our brains that we look for religion keeps evolving once we get into space. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the OG Star Trek, oh, there's none of this. It's there's just access to more of it. And everybody's search for greater meaning in the universe.
So in the interrogation room, Sheridan's, giving him more crap about the amnesia story.
The cover story.
Yeah.
And he uses the age-old tactic of just keep asking questions and don't let him answer, because how can you catch somebody in a lie if you just keep asking questions over and over and over again?
What happened to the Icarus?
Yeah, you've never caught anybody in a lie by just letting them talk.
Yeah.
Just let them talk and talk and talk until they talk themselves into a circle. But what do we know? We didn't go to Garibaldi's homeschool security course.
No, we did not.
So. But we also are getting the timeshare pitch at the same time.
Yes.
And now it comes with armbands.
Yep.
Now, I know that there are perfectly legitimate organizations who wear armbands. I think it's a Red Cross thing.
Yes.
Military police sometimes do it. But aren't armbands just unsettling?
Well, I will say the LARP group Xhafer and I were in had armbands.
Yeah.
But that was because everybody was just like, no, we don't want to like color code or anything. We all have our own, fantasy clothes. I'm just like, can we at least put on like a forearm band that has our unit logo on it?
Yeah.
It did not catch on.
Perfectly legitimate uses of armbands, but in this setting...
Oh, this clearly has a connotation.
Yeah. So his pitch, again, he's got his little, if you just get 3 friends to accept peace and they get 3 friends to accept peace.
Look, do you want to have peace all the time, or do you just need peace, 3 weekends out of the year? That way you don't have to pay for peace year round.
Yeah, and we've got to have that peace ourselves
Right.
before we can have peace with others. So they pitch this, and of course they lead it with, you're going to get an extra 50 credits per week.
Hey, that's why they can't pay for medical care for the Nards.
Yeah, so we're going to launch this Night Watch program. We're going to pay you all a little extra. And I admit that the economics of Babylon 5 are not my strong suit, and I'm not totally sure, how does 50 credits translate for us in our minds, right?
Did they already have we already had the episode where 25 credits a month was enough to make Sheridan sleep in his office, right?
Oh yeah, it was an extra 25 or 30 credits for the
And that was a month.
rent. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so if 25 credits a month is enough to make somebody be like, but the outrage of this, like, it wasn't I can't afford this thing, it was I shouldn't be asked to pay this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But double that a week, it seems like a significant amount of money.
Yeah, it is not insignificant. It is definitely a nice little cherry on the top. But, we lead with that. We lead with, here's all the extra money you're going to get. And Zach does actually push back a little, and he's like, I can't believe I would be paid 50 credits just to wear your armband.
Yes.
And, it becomes clear that Talia is there because she has the ability to detect thoughts.
Right.
And I thought a telling line in Maccabee's pitch is that they're not interested in actions as much as attitudes.
Right.
We don't care what you do, we care what you're thinking.
Exactly. We're not worried about catching criminals. That's for the police. This is for, hey, do you know somebody who might be having subversive thoughts?
Very, very 1984 and Sinister, I think. So I have a question, and you don't have to have an answer, but we brought Talia into this, and he specifically mentioned that Talia's superiors recommended her.
Right.
So do you think that is because Psychor is in with the Night One? Just knowing what you know right now, not knowing what you know from watching the whole series, is Psychor in bed with Night Watch, or are they recommending her because they're wanting her to spy on Night Watch?
I would assume if Psychor was not down with the Night Watch, they would not be talking to Night Watch. They would be doing stuff to undermine Night Watch.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, we've already got a pretty good idea that Psychor was involved in the death of President Santiago and is, pulling the levers up at the very, very tippy top. So in my guesstimations from where we're at now, there would not be a new Ministry of Peace without everybody being in on it.
Yeah, including Psychor.
Exactly. And also, like, if you're going to make an organization that its big thing is, hey, toe the company line, if you're able to tie that with also some of our members are Psychor, that's really going to be something that pushes the average person to be like, I'm not making any waves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that person wearing that armband can read my mind or not.
Yeah.
So I think they complement each other very nicely.
And the great thing about this show that you and I both know, because we've seen, at least in my case, much of it. I don't know if I've seen all of it actually, but much of it before, is we don't just introduce something like this and then not hear from it again. Like,
right.
Night Watch is coming back. It's going to be a
absolutely.
thing. And they make that pretty clear at the end of this episode, I think. So we've got Thought Police, and also they might be your neighbors. Cool.
I did appreciate the juxtaposition of having this quasi-sinister meeting where it's, hey, we just want to find people who might be dangerous to the public safety and then, re-educate them and bring them around. And then it cuts right to our other storyline where Sheridan is holding somebody without charging them with a crime.
Yeah.
And interrogating them for 10 hours.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't quite notice that. The other thing that I was thinking about this scene was that we hear this all the time, even today, right? That like, well, why are we helping in this case, right. And the zeitgeist right now. Why are we helping Ukraine when we have our own problems here at home? And this Night Watch is going to prey on that. Like we already know Earth Dome is going to try to prey on that. And a big part of this episode is, these poor Narns. And
right. Nobody's spending the time to think about, hey, we've literally seen streams of refugees. We've seen a med lab full of the dead and dying. We know enough how this has been going on that Franklin's quasi-traumatized. This isn't like, man, it's been a bad day. This is, man, it's been a bad couple of weeks at the very least.
Yeah, months even at this point. Yeah, so it's a weird juxtapositioning that this episode is trying to make us think of all these things at once, and I really appreciate that about the writing. So yeah, we go back to the scene where Garibaldi is, ready to like hang it up with Sheridan.
He's just like, dude, we're done. Which I don't know. When Garibaldi decides to be by the book and when he doesn't seems to be as the plot requires.
Yeah,
he does even kind of be like, hey, as soon as I step outside this door, I'll play it fast and loose. But when I am in this office, by the book. And it's like, that seems real arbitrary, my dude.
Yeah, that doesn't flatter you the way you think it does.
No.
But he's saying, even my homeschool security training tells me this isn't okay. Like, I can't do this here. For one thing, there are cameras up there.
Did I print out the certificate myself? Yes, I did. But it means something to me.
Yeah. So, but Garibaldi tries a compromise here.
Yes.
He says, you let him go, I'll just tail him till we find something to charge him with.
Yes, I will harass this man until he does a crime.
Yeah, which that's just not good enough for Sheridan, I guess, even though I thought that was a decent compromise from their perspectives.
Well, it's also one of those things that, once again makes you wonder, how many cameras are on Babylon 5?
Really? Yes.
Like, he's just sitting there with his feet up watching the interrogation. We're not getting like a scene of him like scrubbing through all of Morden's time and being like, well, he's met with these people. He knows these things. Like,
he just talked to Veer a little bit ago.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, what police work are you doing outside of berating this man inside of an office for 10 hours there, Sheridan?
Yeah. Do you think they let him go to the bathroom? I would hope so.
I have to imagine it at some point.
10 hours is a long time. So yeah, Garibaldi ultimately gives Sheridan the ultimatum, the one that never works. They're like, you do this or I go, and winds up having to.
We get the gun and the badge on the table.
Yep. So rough moment there. Back from, I presume, a commercial break. Sheridan's got Zach, and he's going to turn over the prisoner to him. And also gives him some instructions to just, maybe find Talia. Let's just see what Talia
maybe we'll do an
do.
illegal brain scan.
Yeah, no big deal.
Hey, it's not a crime to scan a dead guy's brain.
Yeah, but he's got to meet with Veer first. And in Sheridan's office, Veer is saying, you've got to let this guy go. He's ours.
Right. Diplomatic community.
I think Veer does a really good job here of not giving his hand away about Morden. We know he hates Morden, right?
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting juxtaposition with the first Veer scene. Because you have to imagine Veer would love nothing more than to see, Garibaldi throw this guy out of an airlock. But he's tied to his, diplomatic mission here. I do what Londo tells me. Londo says, get this guy out of jail. I get this guy out of jail.
Yeah. Stephen First just does a great job in this scene.
Oh, fantastic.
He's got very, poised at first when he says this. And then as Sheridan gets angrier, you see him start falling into his Veerness a little bit. But he doesn't give anything away.
I do have a question for you. Do you think this is the first time Veer has had to get somebody out of prison for Londo?
Oh, gosh, it can't be, right?
Right. So I do wonder, is Veer a little bit like, okay, at least this is something I know how to do?
Yeah, like he's like, really, I have to do it for this guy, the one that I hate so much.
Right.
But he's done it before, right? If nothing else, it was a drinking buddy or a casino buddy or
something happened.
A pretty
we know
lady.
he's been involved in like bar brawls and cheating at cards. Something's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is not his. He's got a script he can fall back on. He knows how to do this. Yeah.
And this is where my one plot hole from the beginning comes back a little bit, because Sheridan's able to drop the, hey, we haven't charged him with a crime, so diplomatic immunity doesn't apply. So, but then again, I had to think back to, going to other sci-fi. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, in Trek, if your ship blows up, there's an automatic court-martial. Like,
yeah.
I was just back to it again, like, there should be things that, like, you're holding Morden for. A ship blew up.
Yeah, good point. Like, because he does make the point. He could have his wife's murderer in custody.
Right.
And that's a very solid point. Like, if he's the only person who survived a ship that blew up and nobody knows what was happening when it blew up,
there needs to be an investigation.
Right. So, yeah, there seems like there should be a mechanism for that. Like,
or even if
Star Trek
Morden's
example.
Totally innocent, there should be okay, we need to backtrack to the guys who found you so we can find some evidence to maybe find out what happened. Like, he's obstructing even that. Now, of course, we know because it didn't actually happen, but
yeah. So he gets Veer out of there by saying this is protective custody.
Right.
Which is just okay. It's like Talia said, it's the letter of the law to defeat the spirit of the law.
Exactly.
He's just that all over the place. We run into Ivanova in the hallway. She's got the same concerns. We're just hearing them all over again. And Sheridan just keeps moving forward.
Yep.
But back in the security office, Talia is refusing to do that unauthorized brain scan.
And then Sheridan gets real underhanded here.
Oh, this is just the biggest dick move of all time, right?
Because he knows she's going to be picking stuff up just blatantly. So he makes it so that they cross each other in the hallway.
Yeah.
Talia immediately starts screaming.
Yeah, she's hit with something bad, some real bad vibes. Terrible pain. She sees some wavy things that we know because we've seen the shadows. We see these wavy shadows next to Morden, and she just like collapses into Zach's arms and has to get taken to medbay.
Really, really bad.
Yeah.
Which also makes me wonder, like, does Morden like avoid telepaths?
I mean, that's the implication, right? Like he's got to.
Which would make, like, later in we get different episodes that are a day with this character, and it makes me sad we never got like a day with Morden. Like, what does he do in a day on Babylon 5?
I would love all those scenes of him just sitting in a room by himself with two shadows next to him.
Yep, he's just sitting there staring out into the middle distance, waiting for somebody to come in and be like, "Aha, I've been expecting you."
I think if you do that episode, you get a couple of characters you're doing at once, and every scene of Morden is just him like sitting somewhere and staring. I think that'd be great. Okay, so in med lab, Talia gets checked out. She tries to like describe this experience, and all we can get is really it's horrible. She doesn't know what she saw. She doesn't know what his deal is. But Sheridan comes in and tries to apologize and gets a good slap in the face.
Yeah, and he earned it. But he even admits, like, yeah, I deserve that.
Oh yeah, he knew he was being an asshole. So
yes,
he's got some splaining to do, some apologizing, real apologizing to Talia. Not this like half-assed thing he attempted. And I read that apparently they only did two shots of this scene, like of the slap, because she did it very hard. They didn't want to hurt Bruce Boxleitner.
I appreciate that they went for it, because I don't know, I've had to slap people on stage before, and it's the kind of thing like, okay, if you do it once, like, I'm not super worried about having hurt you, but like, you don't want to practice it. We're not gonna run the scene a couple of times.
Yeah, any sort of like physical contact fighting on stage is difficult for me.
Yeah.
I don't like to do it to people. So Sheridan just takes this all as like confirmation that he's right. He's on the right track and he should just keep pushing. Franklin actually steps in for a second and says, you can't fix everything.
Right.
Maybe you should back off a little. But it's not Franklin that convinces him.
Nope. It is Delenn and Kosh hiding in the hallway.
Yeah. they're hanging out in the hallway and they are insistent that he release Morden, and he's just incredulous. He can't believe these people would get involved.
Right.
And why?
Yeah,
So
Delenn, why are you not on my side? And Kosh, why do you care? You know, because for Kosh to take an interest in something means, you know, is out of the ordinary.
yes. Yeah, Kosh is famously hands off with everyone on this station.
And so why does he care about this one random dude being in a holding cell?
Yeah. So we get to find out why. So Delenn explains that there was a war with these shadows. And it sounds like the first war was 10,000 years ago.
Or there
Make
was
sure I
there
get my
was one
timeline right.
10,000 years ago.
Yeah. But, you know, the Minbari and other first ones allied together to defeat the shadows. I'm not sure if that was the one 10,000 years ago, if that was 1,000
That was the one
years
1,000 years ago.
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
And now we've only got one first one race left.
Yep, the Vorlons. But they're not letting everyone know that they're first ones.
Yeah, but it's kind of obvious, right?
You'd think so.
They're the ones that are like mysterious technology and don't explain anything about themselves. And it's like, if there's going to be a first one race, it's them, right?
Right. Like it's not, hey, we're super chummy and everybody's best friends. And then it's like, wait, you're actually 5 million years old? You know, it's, who's the person drawing the most attention in this room? Is it the guy in the encounter suit who's looming over everybody saying cryptic stuff?
Yeah. It was pretty obvious. So we get a nice, fun little black and white flashback.
Yep, we get a flashback to Jenga Tower Delenn.
We've been calling it the Cones of Denshire.
Yes.
But Jenga Tower is good too. It's like, you know, how 3D chess and Star Trek changed. Like maybe Jenga is all about the triangles in 2250. So she asked a question at the end of that last episode of season 1, but we don't know what the question was. We know what the answer was, and the answer was yes. Now we find out the question.
What is have the shadows returned? Sorry, I was doing it in Jeopardy form.
Jeopardy style, I love it. Have the shadows returned?
Yes.
And the answer was yes. So Kosh has confirmed that the shadows have returned. And then Kosh like does this thing where he like projects an image maybe into Sheridan's mind. I think that's how we're supposed to take it.
An image or like his own memories.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
But he suddenly gets to experience it.
Yeah, he gets to experience the Icarus and what the Icarus did. And for some reason, Delenn is able to narrate this image. So maybe she's seeing the same thing at the same time. I don't know.
Well, and also it makes me wonder, how did Kosh get these images?
Yeah.
Is it what his thoughts of the situation are?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it some sort of, they were actually able to like spy on Zahadum psychically?
Right. Those are questions I had too, but I don't have good answers for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe he's just conjecturing and he's projecting this image, but it's the Icarus. They went to look up the remains of a dead civilization. And Sheridan knew that part, you know. I don't know why we hadn't connected before this that the Icarus was at Zahadum. Like, surely he had the flight plan of the Icarus and all
Jakar's
those files.
been yelling about this planet for a year.
And Jakar's been yelling about this planet for a year. So, like, again, some of
Sheridan would be like, wait a minute, the place my wife died?
Right. It's like some of the plot doesn't line up. Like, you can't, I don't know, maybe they were keeping their flight plan a secret, but I don't see how that.
Or it's a situation of translation errors where they all called the planet different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel like they'd have that somehow worked out. You know, it's Jakar's running around warning everybody, don't go to Constantinople. And Sheridan's just like, man, my wife died in Istanbul. and you know, he's not able to square the circle there.
That's nobody's business about the Turks.
Yeah, I would think that if you just put your hands on a map real quick, you can get rid of that. But
this place right here, nobody go here. It's real bad.
Yeah, but apparently, you know, that's where they were. We didn't know it until now that the Icarus was at Zahadum, but it was. And they either woke up the shadows there, or I just accidentally stumbled on some shadows there who was doing stuff. I think the story is that they woke them up.
Yes.
That it was humans' arrival
that made them be active.
Yeah. Sheridan's overwhelmed. Delenn confirms that anybody who was on this ship, John, that wouldn't serve would have been killed.
Right.
And so
he's
what
like,
you
but
have,
prisoners, like maybe they keep prisoners. And
yeah,
they're like, no, dude.
he's trying to keep the dream alive. But what you have in there in that cell, that is a man who chose to serve.
Yeah.
So you got to let him go because he's not alone. And, if you tip our hand too early, we're not going to be ready to fight them.
Right.
And then she compares John's situation now to Jakar's earlier in the season. Like, you can get revenge right now, or
Yeah.
you can actually do something for the good of others. You got to choose between yourself.
Yeah. Getting that revenge right now could mean we all die.
Yeah. And boy, this just gets real dark if you keep thinking about how Jakar has been warning us about Zahadum for a year now, right?
Exactly.
And Delenn and Kosh have both known about that, about his warnings about Zahadum. And basically, they've chosen to let the Narn suffer and die right now.
Do we think that they know that the shadows are why the Centauri are winning the war?
I mean, they've got to have a hint about it, right? They've got to have a suspicion, even if there's plausible deniability right now.
Like, why are these two races that should be having a more evenly matched war? Why is it going so one-sided?
Yeah, especially. Well, I don't know if they know about the link between Morden and Londo, do they? We don't have a clear. I don't have a
think
clear
so.
scene that connects that Delenn and Kosh would know that. Sheridan knows that.
So I presume they would find that in short order.
Yeah,
But
it's got to be coming, right? But boy, we know that they've chosen to sacrifice the Narn. Probably chosen to sacrifice the Narn. And Sheridan gives his little analogy about this too.
Yep.
He gives everybody a history lesson. Especially, I love this canon that Zach doesn't know history.
Right.
It's very good. It makes Zach very he's got to have this down to earth projection, very everyman, and not.
But I mean, at the same time, how much would your average person know about a war 250 years ago?
Yeah.
Or 300 years ago? Because it's
oh gosh, it'd be more
2259 to 1940.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So how much does somebody know about the 7 Years War or whatever?
Like beyond the surface too. Yeah.
He's talking about specifics.
And this analogy he gives is very good.
Oh, it's a great analogy. I love it.
He tells us the story about how the British broke, or at least the Allies broke the Germans' Enigma code in World War II. And they have intercepted a message that, the city of Coventry was going to be bombed. And they had the choice of, do we give away that we've broken this code by evacuating the city of Coventry, or do we do nothing
and let the city get bombed?
Yeah, keep intercepting messages, maybe save other lives through that, but these lives are gone. And it's a real decision from Winston Churchill. And Sheridan clearly feels like Churchill in this moment. If he lets Morden go, people are going to die, but if he doesn't, then he tips the whole war into the now.
Yep.
So.
The thing that gets me, though, is at this point, he shouldn't have as many reservations as he seems to, because he knows what the story is. He knows Morden is a bad guy, but he knows he's not responsible for anything that happened to his wife.
Yeah.
So all of those fears are assuaged. It's not like he, sold them off or blew up the ship or something. It's, hey, they went to a galactic bad neighborhood and, were either subjugated or killed. I found a guy who's subjugated. I already know everything I need to know. Morden can't tell me anything about the Icarus that I don't know now.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's I also know it's a very emotional, everybody who was on this thing are supposed to be dead, moment for him. So it might not be as easy to just be like, well, yeah, then let him go.
Well, and he's probably taking a lot more of personal responsibility into it, as he didn't do the right thing and just die. He chose to be a subject. And
yes,
we have a little bit more sophisticated understanding of power sometimes in this day and age, and that like doing the right thing, which is to die, is not necessarily like a choice you can make when you're faced with overwhelming power. So I don't know. Yeah, he's bringing a lot of that energy to it and making Morden kind of the symbol of.
He's not a fan
shadows.
of collaborators.
Yeah.
Even if it's, hey, it was this or get murdered on an alien planet. Now, the fact that Morden seems to enjoy it, okay, maybe Morden's a piece of junk. But
yeah. But we don't know how much of the real Morden is still in there, to be honest.
True.
Like, is this just who he was, and he was a real skis?
Well, I mean,
in
the Icarus photo, he had that same creepy, dead-eyed
yeah.
stare. So.
I think it's very possible that this is just who he is. It's more fun
like,
to
okay,
think about that way.
Who wants to help us subjugate the galaxy? He was like, yes! This is my dream!
Here for it.
The shadows are like, dude, you're a little underhanded even for us.
I should think you'd be grateful.
Dial it back. You're a little much. So he does need a little bit more to let this go, though. And he hears some weird stuff from the cell and makes Zach start scanning it on different wavelengths. And Sheridan gets to see the shadows next to Morden. Very briefly, his back is turned. He saw nothing. And that's it. He knows they're there. He's ready to accept it and let Morden go.
Absolutely. He's like, okay, we're done here. Like, it's been confirmed for me.
It's all real now. It's not theoretical. I've seen it. Morden stares at the camera, nice and creepy.
Yeah, straight out of Psycho. I don't know if he looks like Norman Bates on purpose, but I really get strong Norman Bates staring right down the barrel of the camera vibes from Morden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ed Wasser is so good at this, right?
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's just great. This show would not be the same without him. And then we get Sheridan going to Garibaldi and giving him back his gun and his badge and apologizing for being wrong. Garibaldi accepts it better than I would have thought.
Yeah, he accepts it real quick.
Yeah. Sheridan promises it won't happen again. And that seems to be enough for Garibaldi. I mean, considering how reluctant he was to accept Sheridan at the beginning of all this, you almost would have expected a little more resistance to this. But and then as Sheridan's leaving, Zach shows up and
he's got a Night Watch armband. Yep.
Yeah, he's doing the armband, and he tells Garibaldi, he's like, hey, they're offering me a little extra money to just do what I do. So yeah. Zach he's the everyman. Like, who would turn that down?
You know, if it was just, hey, walk around and if you see something weird, tell somebody, I think a lot of people would take that deal.
Yeah. Especially for extra money. Like,
well, and like, if I'm going to like make some sort of guess, like for an extra $200 a week, you know, what would how far would you go?
Yep. So that's a big moral question that we got to wonder about.
Yep.
And then we go see Kosh to round out the episode. Sheridan tells him, I released him, and now I want to learn how to beat these shadows at Zahadum.
And we get the big important line, if you go to Zahadum, you will die.
Yeah. But Sheridan doesn't care.
Nope.
And Kosh says, okay, I'll teach you. End of episode. So, Ben, I have to ask you another important question. We've posed each other a few important questions, and it's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this episode on a scale from Babylon's 1 to Babylon's 5?
I really, really like this episode. Like, I did have some issues with it. Like, there are some things that feel like a little bit of plot holies, but I also don't know the Earth Dome legal code. Maybe they've only got like 7 laws, and that's why Garibaldi is able to be security chief. So I found like parts of it really compelling. I found the juxtaposition of, okay, we've spent 17 episodes with Sheridan, so we know he's a good guy. So we're able to excuse some of his stuff. Whereas the Night Watch Ministry of Peace stuff comes off as way more ominous. So we, the viewer, are able to put things in different contexts, but still enjoy the juxtapositions next to each other. And then also it's just a wonderful Morden showcase. So I'm going to give it Babylon 4.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I can quite get to Babylon 4 because of the plot holes, but it's such an important like plot driver, for the overall story. I'd probably land in 3.5 just because of the plot holy nature of some of this.
Yeah, but you get the great Veer scene, and then
We do
you
get the Veer.
you know, Kosh actually explaining something.
Yeah. We get some good CGI with that Icarus. Like, it's pretty good quality. I don't know. I guess you could talk me into 4.
I mean, 3.5, I wouldn't argue with.
It's above average for sure.
Yes.
I think we can both agree on that for sure. Okay. Well, hopefully on our next episode, Xhafer will be back.
I hope so.
Yeah. Not that it's not been great having you on. Thank you so much, Ben, for sitting in and talking Babylon 5 with me. It's been a hoot.
It was my pleasure.
And also thank you to Jeremy Siegel for our theme music. You can find more of him at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com. And also thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast art. And thank you to everybody else for listening and being here with us today. If you want to join conversations on our Discord, you can email us at whoareyoub5@gmail.com, and we will get you a link to our Discord, or you can just send us your thoughts there. That's fine too. And make sure you come back and join us next week for Season 2, Episode 18, Confessions and Lamentations. Ancient beliefs, contemporary ignorance, and futuristic medicine clash when a plague threatens the station. Oh boy, that just sounds like the perfect episode for Xhafer to come back. So we'll see you next week, Internet. Bye.